Welcome to the Movers Resource Guide podcast, connecting you to the resources you need to create success. We chat with the best vendors, associations, mentors, movers, and more, giving you the information you need to make your moving company the best it can be. I'm your host, Brian Hassan, CEO of Wayfinder Moving Services in Buffalo, New York, Apex Moving and Storage in Lakewood, Washington, and the president of the New York State Movers and Warehousemen's Association. Just a quick reminder, if you're enjoying this podcast on YouTube, just want to let you know that we are on all the other podcast channels, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, check us out there as well. Today, we're having a conversation with Eric Scorzelli, Director of Moving and Storage Strategy with the Packaging Exchange. Eric and I have a great conversation about how to build that relationship with your packaging supplier, what the right ways are to communicate with them, the information they need to know to do the best job they can for you. And with that information, how you can keep your pricing low and make sure that you're getting competitive, fair pricing on your packaging. I think it's a wonderful conversation. Hopefully it's useful to everyone. Hope you enjoy it. So here's the conversation with Eric. All right, Eric, welcome to the Movers Resource Guide podcast. We're really happy to have you here. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. No complaints on this end.
Really excited to have this conversation with you, fresh off your Lifetime Achievement Award from the New York State Movers Association and all the work you've done there over the years. So, just a wonderful person for the industry and have given back a lot over the years. We appreciate you in the industry. A lot of people know you've seen you around at the events. So I appreciate you taking your time to come in here and have a conversation with us.
It's always good to talk to you, believe me.
So we wanted to have you in and talk about packaging and pricing and being a good customer and all these different things and how we can make a great relationship with our packaging supplier. Mm-hmm. So one of the first questions I want to ask is, how can we be a good customer or communicate well with our rep? What are some things that movers maybe should be doing that we're not?
Okay. Well, I think at the onset, when you're at first talking to a supplier mm-hmm. and wanting to possibly do business with them, it's really no different than what your expectations are of a moving client. You really should show them everything that's in the shed. That's I hear that over and over again from all of my customers. Well, we had this move and we did the estimate, and then all of a sudden the guy's got more tools in the shed than than we can even load on the truck. It's very similar, and I think that falls on the sales rep also. Mm-hmm. What I've always tried to do is make sure that I do a physical look inspection of the operation of my potential customer. There are things that go into the servicing of a customer that really can change the aspect of expectation. Whether it's not having loading docks or if the building is in more of a residential area than a true commercial area. Those things matter, how much space they have to keep supplies.
Yeah.
How long it will take to unload and load and all of those things. It's very similar to what you're looking at when you're doing a walk around in a household, and then there are other things, being very open about, your expectations of how you're going to pay your bills. Are you going to use a credit card? Are you going to pay by check? There's cost involved in that. Some suppliers may have a surcharge for a credit card. If you don't discuss that at the onset, all of a sudden the invoice looks different. The relationship starts off
on the wrong foot, for sure.
On a negative instead of a positive. Yeah. Even if you've come to strong agreement on pricing and all of those other aspects, all it takes is one thing that we've left out of the equation. So
Yeah.
I'll turn that around and say, as a customer, you should expect your salesperson to really do a thorough examination of how you operate and what your expectations are going to be.
Yeah. Be asking those questions and know what you need. And
Yes.
it's good
Ask
for
a
us to
lot of
know.
questions.
Yeah. Because when I
Yep.
set up with a vendor, I trust that they should guide me through that process, right? What do you need to know? But it's good
Yep.
for us to know too, hey, maybe these are the things we should be asking.
Yeah. And also, notice this in a lot of times when I'm sitting and talking to a new client. Take notes. When somebody says they're going to do something for you, make a note of it.
Yeah.
I prefer to follow up all my conversations with a list of the things we've talked about, but I'm going to miss something every now and then also.
Yeah.
And it's good to just make sure that you're on top of the conversation. This is something that can be long term. I have customers for 38 years now.
Yeah.
You want to start it off right and keep it right.
Yeah. And I think maybe it's part of the human condition, but as consumers, we think that they're going to remember us and we're the only customer and they're going to remember every detail like we do of what is
Hmm.
supposed to happen. But,
Exactly.
as salespeople in our own industry, when I first got into it, man, I remembered every customer, I remembered every detail of every move. And it got to the point over time where, as you did more and more and more of it, it's like, I don't even remember that customer. And not to say that would happen in this industry, but because you're dealing with them on a regular basis over time. But,
Hmm.
all of a sudden everything starts to blend together. And so I think that's an excellent point that those notes do
Very much
matter.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so once we establish that relationship, we find a good packaging supplier that we're happy with, and we know what's going on. Packaging and commodity prices are all over the place, right? So,
Yep.
how do we know that we're getting the best pricing, or that that the pricing we're getting is competitive?
Okay. So a couple of things. First of all, don't don't take for granted that commodities do move. So
Yeah.
don't take for granted that the pricing is going to move every time up and down unless you've established that you're going to check that
Okay.
there's a process in place. So good suppliers should have a process in place for making price changes,
Okay.
and that should be established at the beginning. For instance, linerboard, which is the measure of how corrugated moves in the
Okay.
marketplace. That moves normally in $50 per ton increments, sometimes a little higher. Sometimes there's smaller increments, like over the last year plus, there have been very small changes.
Okay.
You should have an established percentage of increase slash decrease for every $10 that linerboard moves. And
Okay.
your supplier should be doing that. There should be a process as far as how the date of change in the market influences the change in pricing from your supplier.
Okay.
So all of that should be established up front. There are some things that you really can't do that with in packaging. A lot of the plastic items
Yeah.
can be very volatile at times.
Okay.
And you may see multiple spikes very quickly. That's usually because of some event that's really changed things. Plants going down. We had an incident of a major plastic manufacturer in Texas fire a few years ago
I
that
think I
took like
remember that.
15% of the product out of the marketplace. Well, things
Yeah.
just jumped up so quickly, you can't even
Yeah.
keep track of it, and they go down as quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you should have some sort of measure for that. And then the other thing, depending on how good your relationship is with your supplier, check pricing every now and then. Even though you have a great relationship, it's okay to, it's okay. You're not cheating on your girlfriend. It's okay to call somebody else and say, hey, just want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
We're always ready to talk to everybody.
Yeah.
A good company and a good sales rep is going to be honest and upfront, and they may be a penny off on things every now and then, but if they're doing their homework and doing their job, they're going to
Yeah.
give you the fair pricing in the marketplace.
Yeah, and I think that if you have a really good relationship with the company, you're not trying to change suppliers over a penny here or there.
Right.
But if it is significantly different, you may want to really understand that. So, on a follow up on that, with the with those prices that adjusting a percentage based on the commodity price or how
Mm-hmm.
that moves. We're not going to sit here as movers, and we don't want to, right? Look at this every week.
Right.
So how often would be a reasonable expectation that we should be looking at that, or we should see some adjustments? And what's the cadence for something like that?
I think if you look at it twice a year,
Yeah.
that's realistic.
Okay.
Again, on the corrugated side, you're going to be alerted, by letter, by phone call, etc., because that's a significant part of your spend. Some of the little things may move. If steel strapping moves and you're buying 4 coils a year, it's incidental.
Yeah.
Those things. You got to look at the meat of the
Right.
of the
Yeah.
of the buy.
Yeah, it's definitely, and when pulp prices were going crazy during COVID, and
Hmm.
those price increases were coming fast and furious. I mean, it was
Yeah.
9% and 4%, whatever it was, but it was just like one after another after another.
Yes.
So with that though, we've seen a decline in some of those. It seems like over the last year, there's been a decrease in those raw material prices.
Sure.
What would you say? I mean, have you seen packaging pricing decline over the last year? Is there a certain percentage roughly that it's gone down, or?
Yeah. Well, and I may be off by a few dollars here,
Mhm.
and the timing of it. But if you looked at that big cluster of increases
Mhm.
that occurred during the COVID period, linerboard went up about $220 a ton.
Wow.
It went all the way up to, am I going to say 865 a ton? I may be off on that number, but that's significant. $220 a ton. That means it went up 25
Percent. Yeah.
plus percent. In the last 2 years, it's gone down $110 a ton
Okay.
in
So
very small increments.
very low.
$20 here, $20 here, $20 here. And there, and again, I'm always hesitant to talk about pricing because we're in the same boat that you are. That's not something, you don't send smoke signals up,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I will say this, if anybody wants to do their homework, simply just get on Google now and just look up, corrugated pricing 2024 or whatever. You're going to see articles about announced increases by the major suppliers with
Okay.
numbers and things, and that's public knowledge, so I don't have to,
So
hesitate about saying that. But they have the industry, from what I read, is they need to stave off the decline because, like everybody else, their expenses have gone up so high.
yeah.
Just transportation and all of those things. They're in a position where they've got to make money on selling paper and selling boxes.
Yeah.
and they're in a position now where they're really struggling.
And so kind of reading between the lines there and doing the math in my head, it sounds like the pricing has gone down. Maybe I'm not necessarily saying a specific company, but at least the commodity pricing has gone down maybe 12-13% over the last couple of years.
Should be a little higher than that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So, but it sounds like come 2024, we should start seeing it going back up again.
yeah. It'll happen.
Yeah.
It will happen, and if you're doing, it's a little late. If I'm talking to you about doing planning, you've probably already looked at all of those things, but it's not too late to adjust it. You're probably going to have an increase in your packaging cost.
Yeah. And, if I don't think there's a lot of moving companies sitting on a lot of cash right now necessarily after
Hmm.
some of the times we've gone through here. But um, I know when those prices were climbing steeply, and, you kind of let us know what was on the horizon, and we were able to do
Hmm.
significant purchasing of cardboard. We had the space to store it longer term. And so we were able to purchase most of our packaging for the summer at lower cost before everything really skyrocketed. So
Hmm.
I don't know how much those increases will be this time, if it's really worth that or not. But that's knowing that could happen, for people who have space and cash, could save them some money for sure.
Right. And it is space and cash. That's
Yeah,
the critical thing. It's not, price of a box is, it's nice to save a few pennies,
yeah,
but the opportunity of space and the revenue you can make on it often outweighs that
yeah, yeah,
by
yes,
a lot. You know,
yeah. If you
I
don't
always
have the
say,
space or the
as a
cash, you're not.
supplier, yeah, as a supplier, one of the things we always do is, we're always looking at buildings with, 40-foot height because, stacking boxes, that's how we can kind of keep the cost of distribution down.
Yeah.
If you take that same cubic feet in your warehouse and you can put storage in, the equation is totally imbalanced.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with that, because you're not going to save enough on the packaging to offset that cost for sure.
Yeah.
So, what are so with the pricing and getting the best pricing, we talked about it's not okay. It's okay to check once in a while, or we've talked about a few of those things. Are there different ways that you can purchase your packing? I guess we just talked about one. You could order in bulk before a price increase, but are there other ways you can go about purchasing that kind of helps that pricing for you?
Sure. I think going into a negotiation, there are some things that you can do to help on the pricing side. First of all, take a look at what your order process is now. How often do you order? What's your
Okay.
average order size in dollars? And then look at what the potential of decreasing the number of deliveries a supplier has to make.
Okay.
And you can, again, it's all about distribution costs.
Okay.
It lands somewhere. You know, if the space is taken up in my building as opposed to yours, I have a higher cost on that material.
Yeah.
If I have to deliver to you twice a week,
Hmm.
I have a higher cost of handling that, right? So if we can come to term on a very nice, tidy arrangement, say it's once a week or once, depending on where you are geographically, also that matters.
Sure.
But if we can change from once a week delivery to once every 2 weeks, we're going to find pennies for you.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
it all comes down to that. And as we have, on my side of the industry, as we have matured
Hmm.
and gotten better at what we do and really started to use the metrics of distribution, we know when we can give you a penny. We know when we can give you some money back in the scheme of things.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And
Sometimes it's a bulk buy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting because we only get deliveries once a week, sometimes not even that often, but in the summer usually we're getting a delivery every week.
Hmm.
I can't imagine needing to get a delivery more than once a week, unless you make a mistake or something. But I would say
Well,
for most of the year, I mean, unless we're really in the thick of it in that peak season, I don't see why we couldn't, and most companies couldn't do an every other week delivery as long as you know what's coming down the line with your schedule, which we typically know enough to plan 2 weeks out on our packaging, I would think.
yeah, and again, it depends on how if you're going to put a little work into it on your side,
Hmm.
uh, you can be a good customer and marry that up with a good supplier, and you've got an arrangement where you're probably going to get the best pricing in the market. You're going to
Yeah.
get the best service in the marketplace. Quality is a given. We all, meaning everybody that I compete against across the nation, we're really all doing business with the same supply chain,
Yeah.
group here. I don't want to say a box is a box because the variables all come into play on service and pricing, but
But those
the
boxes have to
product is
meet,
more or less the same. You have
yeah,
to
meet certain
differentiate in other
standards.
ways.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because there are, I don't know if people know this, but there are requirements and standards for box strength and all of that. So I would
Yes.
say that all the
Mhm.
manufacturers or competitors kind of are locked into that same quality standard.
Very
So
much.
uh, in Eric Scorzelli's mind, you've had over 30 years in the moving industry or in the packaging,
Hmm.
selling to the moving industry. So you know, you and I both know relationships are super important. How we treat our customers, the interaction, having that, customers that you've had for 32 years, like you said. Um, in your mind, what makes a good customer? What makes a customer that you want to have that long term relationship with, and that when they need something, you absolutely want to make sure you're there for them.
Um, I, it builds over time. Obviously,
Sure.
you start out with a very just a working relationship, and it
Yeah.
turns into often a friendship. Things beyond that, but um, I think just doing what you said you were going to do. It on both sides, right?
Yeah.
If and I've always taken that personally. If I'm doing everything right for you, then I expect the same.
Yeah.
And from that perspective, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
It just means that you live up to the obligations that we talked about at the onset. How you are going to place orders, how you're going to pay. Listen, in my business, we make the only way we make money is by doing two things: turning inventory and turning dollars.
Yeah.
If we don't do those two things, the profit erodes so quickly.
Yeah.
So those are the things we really look at. So if you have printed material, for instance, and you've obligated to take it and turn it at a specific over a specific period of time,
Hmm.
that's very important to us as suppliers.
Okay.
If you say you're going to pay your bills on time, pay your bills on time. Listen, everything has obstacles over a course of 30 years.
Sure.
I've
Yeah.
had customers that have gone from the high point to the low point because of things that just happened in life.
Yeah.
Life events really do affect business more than anything. And
Yeah.
sometimes as a supplier, you've got to understand that and live through that period. But
Yeah.
when you live through it, you expect to get back to a
Where you were to
spot where
begin
you
with.
can have a good relationship again. And
Yeah.
so I think that's it. Honesty on both sides of the table is what really matters all the time, you
Okay.
know. And a good relationship, we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that we get you through a tough time,
Yeah.
etc. You know.
So, that kind of answers, what makes a good customer, and kind of talks a little bit about why that relationship is important. You know, and maybe you can speak to that a little bit more, but, getting through those tough times on both sides is, if you've been a good customer for a long time and done everything right, and you are going through a little bit of a rough patch, I think it's a
Hmm.
little bit, and you've maintained that relationship, it makes it a little bit easier for the company to work with you.
Yeah, I had a good customer and what became a very good friend of mine, and he died suddenly.
Mm,
And his children were professionals. They had gone on to other things,
yeah.
and all of a sudden, one of his sons had to come in and take the business over, on Monday morning, basically.
Wow.
And I knew that was going to be a tough road for a while.
Yeah.
But for all of those years that me and his father had this great relationship, how do I not, walk the walk with him as he's struggling to just get things done?
Yeah.
Set him up with some mentors in the industry that helped him out. Just made sure that we took care of him and we gave him some leeway. So that's when you've got something.
Yeah.
You've got something there that's going to last a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think that's one thing that this industry is pretty good about, building relationships with movers and suppliers, and not all those
Hmm.
relationships are always good, right? But I think, as a whole, this industry is really good at developing those relationships among each other, as
Well,
comparative to other
the
places.
industry is the thing that I love about the industry is that, no matter how big or small the companies are,
Hmm.
they're still at the root of them mom and pop businesses.
Yeah.
You know, there may
Yeah.
be some corporate structure that takes over some things when you get up into the really monster agents and whatever, but
Yeah.
you know, they still all, everybody I know in this business swept the warehouse. Everybody I know got on a truck,
Yeah.
and the respect that they have for hard work, the respect they have for honesty and all of those things. I wouldn't want to have done this in any other field
Yeah.
because I don't know if I would have survived. It's just, it's a blue collar business. Again,
Yeah.
no matter how big you get and no matter how small you are, it's all about getting on a truck, servicing a customer, and people just respect a hard day's work in this business, and,
Yeah.
and I've always tried to live that way.
For sure. No, it's very true, and in that way, it's truly a wonderful industry, even when
Hmm.
it's difficult. So,
Yeah, well,
um, so, Eric, we're about out of time here, but I think we got some really great stuff covered. I think you've given us some wonderful information of how we can be better customers, what our expectations can be from, our packaging supplier, and how we can, do things to make sure that we're getting, competitive pricing, and we're doing things to help ourselves with that, right? So,
mhm.
um, you've started a new position here, director of moving and storage strategy, with Packaging Exchange. So if somebody wanted to reach out to you or talk to you with through Packaging Exchange, or their local rep with Packaging Exchange,
Hmm.
how would they go about getting a hold of you or Packaging Exchange?
Well, real simple. My phone is always on, nine
Okay.
one seven 941 0495. I prefer to talk to people.
Okay.
And then Eric Scorzelli at Packaging Exchange. Depending on where you are in the country, I will have a sales rep get in touch with you, and we'd love to talk to everybody about their needs. We're going into a new year, and we're looking to. We already have 24 locations
Wow.
that basically cover the United States and and we do go into Canada also. But we're looking to really grow the moving and storage side of our business as rapidly as we can,
Okay.
and always willing to talk to anybody. And even if you just need something, you need a good mover in another town to help you out, I normally know people that I can turn you on to.
Okay. Awesome. Well, really, really excited for you, Eric. This is a fun new journey for you, and really appreciate your insight and all your experience here, and kind of giving us some tips and tricks on our packaging pricing, and how to work with our suppliers. So appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on here. It was a great conversation, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Well, thank you. I always have fun talking to you, and this is a nice way to do it, and without having to get in my car.
There you go.
All right.
All right. Have a good one. All right. Thank you for listening to that episode. I hope you found it enjoyable. I hope you found it helpful. I'd like to thank Eric for taking the time to come out here and have the conversation with us and giving us those tips and tricks of how to work with our packaging vendors. If you have any questions for Eric, his email is Eric Scorzelli, which is EricScorzelli @packagingexchange.com. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like our episodes, subscribe, share it with your friends, especially your moving friends. Remember, if you're enjoying it on YouTube, try it over on the podcast channels as well. We should be there wherever you listen. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate everyone giving us all the support. We're overwhelmed with how many people are listening to the episodes so quickly. So we really appreciate you enjoying it and sharing it as well. I hope you have a great day. Now get moving.